Thomas Thompson and his family owned and worked a pumpkin farm in Tirisfal Glades just southwest of Agamon Miles. He was one of the paladins who witnessed and agreed with Uther the Lightbringer and Jaina Proudmoore's rejection of Prince Artus Mantil's proposal to purge Stratholme. He was present throughout as the Scourge destroyed Lordaeron. He witnessed Baron Rivendare's betrayal when he sent a large supply of plague grain to a village he was defending. He received word that Prince Artus returned from Northrend and murdered his father. Thomas believed that a foundation for the crime had begun long before he'd even sailed for Northrend, if Stratholme was any indication. 5 days later, he was informed that Artus murdered Uther and many other paladins had been killed. Desperate to keep his family safe, he ordered his wife to flee to Kalandor, following Jaina, while he remained in Lordaeron with the Silver Hand to destroy the Scourge. Over the next 4 years, alongside the other paladins following the Ashbringer, Alexandros Mograine, Thomas constantly fought against the Scourge under Saidan Dathrohan's wing, a man he looked up to. Eventually, though, the Silver Hand was broken when Renal Mograine murdered his father with the Ashbringer, and the founding members of the Argent Dawn, heeding High Inquisitor Fairbank's testimony, left. Thomas stayed to join the Scarlet Crusade. One day, however, Saidan Dathrohan led Thomas and the others to a town full of refugees who led them in under the assumption that it was just another plague chick. Dathrohan gradually convinced Thomas that the population was infected, and unlike Stratholme, Thomas helped to slaughter the refugees. He then accidentally killed his own family before he realized it was them, his daughter turning to look him in the face just as his sword struck her down last. He came to the conclusion that when he had put them on the last ship fleeing to Kalandor, a storm had been approaching at the time and must have arrived sooner than expected and damaged it before it could leave. With Lordaeron in chaos, there would have been no shipwrights to repair it, and the other ships would have been too full, forcing the former passengers to hide whatever they could. Broken, he was taken back to the Scarlet Monastery, where he finally went mad, believing the entire world to be infected and speaking in rhyme. He alone was the only being that could save them. After killing many of his former comrades on Hallow's End, he was confronted and beheaded. Dathrohan decided to give the fallen crusader an honorable burial. Once entombed and alone with the body, Dathrohan, who in truth was Balnazar disguised as the fallen general, used his own blood and fell energies to raise Thomas's corpse, creating the Headless Horseman with his own mad free will. The Headless Horseman would come back to life every Hallow's End and try to burn, everything, the whole world around him. But years later, after his death and his transformation into the Headless Horseman, Sir Thomas's spirit was set free by adventurers of the Alliance and the Horde after the Headless Horseman's defeat inside the Scarlet Monastery, allowing him to finally rest. But the story of Sir Thomas does not end here, because in Dragonflight, following the awakening of the Dragon Isles, Thomas reached out to adventurers who set him free years ago and met him in front of the monastery. He sought atonement for his sins, greatest of them all starting with his family. He had found out that the spirit of his wife, Susanna, was missing and resolved to find clues at the monastery. In time, the pair discovered Susanna, only for her to warn them that it was a trap. Before they could react, Jerome Hayton trapped Thomas in shadows while declaring that the Headless Horseman was meant to cleanse this world by Grand Crusader Dathrohan's will. Jerome in his own right was once part of Dathrohan's inner circle, and he learned the proper magic to use to bring back the Headless Horseman thanks to Dathrohan's, notes, shall we call them. In truth, such magic does not come easy. It was easy for Dathrohan to do this since he was Balnazar, but Jerome was not ready for the Headless Horseman, who swiftly killed him before retreating into the Scarlet Monastery. Determined to save her husband, Susanna implored adventurers for aid. After the Headless Horseman was defeated and Thomas's spirit was restored, the husband and the wife reunited. In the aftermath, he thanked adventurers for the aid and penned the end of his story in his own tome, and after that, departed with his wife to the afterlife, to the Shadowlands apparently. Finally, let's look at the tome, what the tome of Thomas Thompson says. It's a ghostly message, to be sure. Thomas Thompson once bore the colors of the Silver Hand. When the Scourge destroyed Lordaeron, he bade his wife Susanna to take his children, Joel and Gina, and flee the eastern kingdoms to Kalandor. Thomas continued to fight the Scourge, and when the Silver Hand fell, he took up arms the Scarlet Crusade. Perhaps the Scarlet Crusade's cause was once noble, but over time their methods turned to brutality. Eventually, even the most devout could only see potential scourge instead of humanity, killing anyone if there was ever a suspicion they could fall to the plague. Even Sir Thomas was eventually swayed. One day, Grand Crusader Datterhand convinced Sir Thomas that an entire village of refugees were either infected or allied with undead. Thomas slattered the village and, to his horror, realized the last living he took were those of his wife and children. His family's boat had been turned away by storms and never made it to Kalandor, and now they were dead by his hand. Mad with grief, Sir Thomas was taken back to the monastery. He cloistered himself in his chambers, babbling sing-song rhymes about the entire world being infected. Datterhand attempted to give him a final chance on Hallow's End, taking him into battle. Thomas went into a frenzied rage, believing all were scourge and all must be slain. He turned on his own comrades. For this he was beheaded. Few know what happened next, but the Headless Horseman rose shortly after. Sir Thomas may never know peace, but his tale serves as a warning to all. Take heed, lest blind zealotry lead you to eternal sorrow. One of the last pages in the book has a name penned in elegant script. And after the deed is done, the final page of the book now contains a poem penned in the same elegant script. Though once brought low and lost to fright, at last Sir Thomas has seen the light. His spirit at peace, his love returned. The shackles that bound him, now broken and burned. Thus end his tale of woe untold, save by the hand of a hero bold.